This is calling this meeting to order of the Community Preservation Committee of Greenfield. I'd like to do a roll call of the members. Okay. Garth,
Hello. Here.
it's not here.
The Whistleton.
Wisty,
Here.
Jack,
Here.
Peter,
Present.
Sarah,
Here.
Becky is not here yet. Travis is not here, and Donna's not here. But we have a quorum. Okay, in terms of public comment, no discussion or comments will be entertained unless requested by the chairperson of the committee. This meeting is being recorded by the Community Preservation Committee. If any other person present are doing the same, you must notify the chair at this time. Okay, seeing none. Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of December 19th, 2024.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Did everyone
Second.
get the copy I sent out this morning, just with the updated names and everything?
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, all right, cool. Just to make sure that that's the right one.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Wisty, okay. Any discussion about the minutes? Seeing none, I will call the vote. Okay, Sarah,
Yes.
Wisty,
Yes.
Garth,
Yes.
Peter,
Abstain. I was absent.
Jack,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, moving on. We're going to be starting application review at this point. We'll begin with the Connecticut River Conservancy application. Christian, do you want to say anything, or do you want us to just move ahead?
Only thing for this one is that Sam has a few slides that he's going to be able to share just as he answers questions.
Great. Okay, is there any kind of presentation that you all would like to provide since you have slides before we start? Okay.
Yes.
Then why don't we do the presentation first, and then we can continue with the questions.
Great. I think I'll take a moment to start. Thank you so much for letting the Connecticut River Conservancy apply for these funds and to speak with you this evening. My name is Rebecca Todd. I'm the executive director of CRC, and I just want to give you a short opener before I turn it over to Sam Stegeman, our operations manager, who's really been managing all our building work. I just want to say that CRC was established. We're a nonprofit dedicated to the health and well-being of the entire Connecticut River watershed. We were established in 1952 in Greenfield, and after a short stint in East Hampton, we moved back to Greenfield in 1991 when we bought our beautiful building at 15 Bank Row. We have been a small but mighty nonprofit doing good work in all 4 of our watershed states. Maine is also a watershed state, but just a tiny little bit. So it's really the Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. We are growing. When I arrived, our budget was $3.2 million, most of which goes out into communities to help them with preserving and protecting habitat, doing water quality monitoring, removing aquatic invasive species, that kind of work. We are now at a budget 1 year after my arrival at $5.7 million. We've We have, or will shortly have 31 permanent employees, many of whom live and work in the Greenfield area. We are happy to be a part of this community, and we are thrilled to have the historic building that we have. We, in the fall of this year, paid off our mortgage. So we are very excited that it is ours. We're also really excited because of the growth in our budget and on our staff. We need additional space. And so we are now occupying all 3 floors of the 15 Bank Row building. Along with that comes a lot of maintenance work. And so I'm gonna turn it over to Sam to explain to you the specifics of what we're planning to do. And again, thank you so much for allowing us to come before you tonight.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. It's nice to be here with you all. Again, my name is Sam Stegman. I'm the operations manager here. I live in Conway and had my eye on this. I'm pretty recent here at CRC, about 8 months. So, but I've always had my eye on this building and this downtown row of buildings. It's just such a beautiful and kind of beating heart of Greenfield bit of architecture, if you ask me. So I'm learning the building. I'm seeing the pros and cons of inhabiting a very old building. And I'm just going to show you about 10 slides. I'm assuming that you know, you've all read our application. You're going to be asking us questions about it. So I'm just going to illustrate, give some visuals to what we presented in the application. I'm not going to do a verbal run through of the application, although I'm happy to. Sound good? Okay. Thank you, Christian, for letting me share my screen. And just a moment while I pull it up. All right, can you see, do you see the slideshow, or do you see words, or do you see a photo?
See words right now.
Okay. There we go. That's a little better, I think. Oh, great. There we go. So I don't have a pointer here, so I'll just use words to point to what I can. This is 1839, something like that. I don't know, my notes aren't showing, but I'm pretty sure that's approximately the time period. So that the building on the left there with the tower on top of it, sort of a steeple, you'll recognize.
Dan, you
The-
have a drop-down menu that's covering the picture. And we also see a copy of the next slide in the right-hand margin.
Oh, great.
Yep.
All right, well, we're gonna do it differently then here. Let's see. Do you see it currently?
No, you're back on the title slide.
Yeah, but you don't have, there's nothing blocking it now?
Yeah.
Can you see the black and white photo or drawing and
Now
that
we can.
pointer?
Yep.
I think if
Okay,
you
we're just
click on like the from beginning or from current slide, you should be all right.
I did, and that kind of glitched me out, unfortunately.
Uh,
Yeah, it took me to a photo of the desert that I've never seen before. So we're gonna stick with this. So, okay, here we go. There's the building. That is 1838. This is undated, early 1900s is my guess. So the when it was a printing office. And the bell tower or steeple on the original building there, it's hard to tell in this photo if it was there or not, but it was taken off. The bell was melted down for the war effort. I'm not sure what war, but we just the other day found this great photo from 1979 in the archives of when a new bell tower was built and bell was installed to replace the original that had been removed and melted down. So these folks built this in 1979 and installed it. And today, there it is. I'm just gonna mention a lot of the things in the application are on the front of the building. The building is in a good shape, the brick all around the backside. Most of the damage to the brick that needs repair is on the two of the chimneys and on the facade of the building. So up top, there are three, sort of 3.5 chimneys. This one was rebuilt 20 years ago. There are two like this that need repointing. And then there is the bell tower. This is a back view where you can see the repair that's needed. We don't know exactly what we're going to find when we get in there. So Renaissance Builders is who we've worked with for decades now, and they're prepared to be our contractor to repair the bell tower, as well as the chimney repointing, and there are a few spots of brick on the facade that need repair. This is right by the front door. And you can see it's just falling apart here. But like I say, most of the building is not like this. There are these two spots on the front of the building. So that's the repointing piece. And then there are these granite entry steps where a repair was made that needs to be redone. I'm not sure when this was done. And then the mortar between, this is looking at the steps as you climb up them, the mortar between them is almost 100% gone. So that's the masonry. And then the building has two front doors that you can see here and here. 15A, that's us, and 15B, that's our tenant, Cole Ecological. And so both of these thresholds are rotting, have been repaired many times. There's a close-up of the rot and some of the repair. So those are the kind of more, those are the street facing and more historic repairs. Then as you know from our application, the total cost of this phase that we're in is $55,984. So just under 56,000 we've applied to for $10,000 specific to historic repair, and there's the remaining to Preservation Massachusetts. So the remaining 45,984 that we're requesting from the CPC, most of it would be to this next piece, or the bulk of that would be to this next piece, which is the back of the building. And so just for context, this is the back of the Magpie building. This is the sort of side back of the movie theater. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and around the corner 6 windows. Actually, this is a door here. So 5 windows and 1 door on our second floor were bricked in, like cement blocked in. We're not sure when, we're not sure why. And if you go inside of this space right here, here's a look at what the room looks like today. Those windows are here, here, here. There's the door, another window around the corner. So this was the Literacy Projects classroom. This is going to be our conference space that will also have access for other community groups to use, because it has fully accessible elevator and ramp access and a separate entry from the outdoors, making it a really wonderful space for sharing. But there's just 2 windows here letting light in. That could be so much better. So the windows that are in have failed. They were put in the 80s. So you can see the condensation in that pane. You go back out to the outside. Here's my last 2 slides. Also, this is that door, and it goes out onto a flat rooftop here, which in our much larger project, outside of the bounds of what we've applied to here, we are looking at making an outdoor patio. So you can imagine a conference meeting space with a small outdoor patio on the outside. So that is what you go through this door, and here's what it looks like currently, looking out there over the garage and then out over the hills down the valley. So That's just to give you a visual. I will unshare my screen at this time and pass it over to you with any questions that you want to ask us. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Sam. That's really helpful. Oh, Becky's here too. Please note for the minutes that Becky is also in attendance. Okay, what I would like to do is kind of have people raise their hands to either physically or electronically, and we'll start with questions. So if folks have questions, please let me know. Anyone? Becky, you're muted.
Am I unmuted now?
You're unmuted.
I had a question about, there was a continual reference in the application to making this new meeting space available to other groups, but it continued to use the word affordable. And I was curious about what that meant by way of on what basis and at what cost it would be available to other people. And you probably haven't sussed that out yet, is my guess. But I'm
Well-
curious about what affordable means.
Well, because our staff is in 4 separate states, we for years have moved our monthly staff meeting around to different places, and often we're using libraries or the space of other nonprofits that are allowing us to use their space for free, or we make a donation to them, or it's affordable. Otherwise, we typically don't meet. We're not going to pay a lot to meet. And as a community nonprofit, there's a sort of, mutual support happening. So we haven't sussed it out or created any kind of policy, but certainly other nonprofit organizations with a community orientation would get either, first dibs on either free or affordable rates so that we can kind of share the wealth.
Thank
And I
you.
think, by affordable, if somebody's gonna use the space for a 10-hour day, we might, depending on what their resources are, we might say, could you donate $100? If they're there for a 2-hour meeting in the evening, we'll say, just lock the door behind you, right? So we really want to be, CRC is the fiscal sponsor for many sub-watershed groups, so we know what it's like to partner with nonprofit organizations that don't have a building to call home. So we really want to keep this free or nominal cost for nonprofits and community organizations.
Thank you. Anything more on this before we move on? Okay, Garth?
Just a quick thing. So it seems like the project's already underway, right? You've
Yes.
started some of the stuff because you have, right? It's a 300
Yes.
and X $1,000 project. You're asking
Yep.
for a little bit for the historic portion, right?
That's right.
Cool. Yeah, just clarifying that, and it's so far so good. Nobody's like opened up the thing and like, oh no, this is
We haven't opened up any walls yet. We're really just, I mean, we
we
can't
watched
make
like the PBS Notre Dame thing, and they're like, oh no, there's an extra
Yeah.
like 400 bodies buried under this
Yes.
floor. Like, now what do we do?
Well, the renovations in the early 2000s were very extensive, and I have all of the notes from that and am in touch with some of the folks who are involved with it. So yeah, I do feel like there's not a lot of surprises because that was a renovation done with energy efficiency in mind. So they were really looking inside the walls and such. Yes, yeah.
Right.
But you know how construction goes, right? There are always
Right.
surprises and unexpected costs.
Cool. Thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Okay, Jack?
Yeah, so I was curious, so it looks like there's 170,000 that you still haven't been able to secure funds for yet. The Fidelity, FDN, Beverage, and then Eversource. I saw that it was
Right.
no application yet, and no application pending. Is there any update
Yep.
on those funding sources?
Yes, a couple days ago, we got a notification from Preservation Massachusetts that we're invited to we had sent a letter of intent, so we were invited to a full application. Fidelity Foundation, Rebecca, you might have more on that. Do you have anything to share there?
They've also invited us, to submit a full application.
Okay. Beverage Foundation, last year said no, but come back to us next year, and we had like a half an hour conversation with their executive director. And then Eversource is really is maybe a bit of a stand-in for advice I'm getting from our electricians that, you know, for light fixtures and other energy efficient electrical and lighting options, Eversource will potentially be you know, an in-kind donor. But I don't have a lot, you know, plan to apply. It means we haven't submitted anything yet.
Okay. Yeah, I just was curious because 150,000 would be a big piece of your budget. So I was curious as to kind of what your other plans are if those fall through. And I know
Oh, yeah.
when we asked the question, you guys, you know, it said you would look at other funding sources
Yeah.
or scale back the project. And I didn't know,
Yeah.
you know, what that looked like and if that's been talked about more.
Yeah, I mean, scaling back the project on something as sort of multifaceted as this is easy in a way because there are projects all around the building that we can do. However, there's some chunks that really deserve to be done all together. Like when you bring in the crane to knock out the windows, you do everything that you need to do the crane with, right? So we're prepared to adjust and adapt based on not just whether we get some of these grants, but the timing of when funds can be accessible, and we're working closely with our contractors to sort of schedule that out and keep it flexible. But I do feel optimistic. I mean, we've been doing well. People seem to be enthusiastic, and we've had a lot of support in the past, foundation support for previous renovations. So I'm feeling optimistic.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? I'm going to call myself, but I wanted to see if anybody else has a question before I do. Becky.
And this is a small thing, small potatoes, probably in the larger scheme of your big, great project. It looks really neat. I'm really interested in it, but to pay somebody to take away $3,000 worth of home heating oil, couldn't that be sold to someone for use?
Yeah, there's a lot of regulation on how you do it. When you pump it out, you have to have 2 or even 3 techs on site. It has to be done by a licensed company. And often the oil companies that do it, my understanding is you can't reuse it. It's perfectly reusable, but they're legally not allowed to reuse it. They have to incinerate it or something like that. So we're looking for better solutions than that, honestly, because I agree. It's perfectly good oil. It's perfectly safe, and we'd love to put it to good use.
Facebook Marketplace, there you go. Somebody will snap that right up.
Yeah, right. I think it's legal to use it in tractors and diesel vehicles not on the road, so that may be our avenue. We'll see.
My question is a money question. Considering that you're a regional organization, is there any interest in, even though the building is here in Greenfield, is there any interest in going beyond the Massachusetts in order to get any funding that you might need?
Yeah.
Considering that.
Yes, and we will. We will be embarking on a capital campaign, and you know, we are exploring all kinds of grants right now, and we will be including some of these renovations in our capital campaign, and that's watershed wide. And we've already had donations from folks in outside Massachusetts to help with this. So yes, we will absolutely be looking to the entire watershed.
Thank you. That's really helpful to know. Are there other questions that people have? Go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, not so much questions, just a couple of comments. So this applies to all of the applicants, but there is a grant agreement that is signed by all applicants if they are awarded funding by the city council. So I can send that template around. I don't think there's been a single instance yet where any of the content of it presented an issue to a recipient of funding. It's all pretty general expectations, just making sure timelines are set, agreed upon. Second is that for historic projects funded by the committee, they're traditionally, in the last few years, the first few years of funding, there's been a preservation restriction between the city and the applicant. But I know for you, you already have a preservation restriction with the state of Massachusetts. So that's something we'll have to navigate on if it's needed, or if there's some other option that the city could hold, or one's not needed at all. And then third, I'm just wondering if you could go down, you have a very specific list, Sam, of what is being requested from the CPC and what is not going to be CPC work. I'm wondering if you could just reiterate that. I might even share my screen.
Sure.
Because I think it's very good to have that set very clearly in everyone's minds.
Well, the quick answer is everything in green. The green points to the pieces that we are requesting funding from the CPC. So would you like me to go through those, Christian?
Yeah, just describe them.
Okay, sure. So chimney masonry repointing, really should say, to match the application better, chimney masonry pointing and those 2 repairs on the facade of the building of brick. And then repoint entry steps using mortar to match existing. That's the granite steps where I showed you the missing mortar. Remove crawling ivy at $350. This is just because it'll be easy enough. It's already cut and dead, but to get access to the second story of ivy, it's a good opportunity when we're doing the window removal to do that. And obviously that's to protect the bricks. It's beautiful, but it really shouldn't be growing on there. And then repair historic bell tower. Again, like I said, we don't know exactly what's in there. Remove rotten components, manufacture and install new components, paint new components to match existing colors, structural reinforcement as needed. And then replace the routing thresholds on each of our 2 main entryways. This includes removing existing sills, manufacture and install new white oak sills on both entry doors, install self-adhering waterproof membrane on top of sub-sill, sills to be fully primed on all 6 sides prior to installation, paint new sills to match existing woodwork or whatever the word was. And then this is the big ticket item, the $35,000. Remove the cement blocks and install new windows and a door in their original openings in the 2nd floor conference room, crane and demolition equipment required. And that's it. So it's approximately 10,000 of these other historic facade and roof items, and then the 35,000 for the windows project.
Great, thank you. Yeah, because with CPC funding, there's always a question of whether something is maintenance or not, maintenance versus more substantial rehab or preservation. And it seems like your list of things is all preservation oriented. It's not really maintenance. So just the thing to know.
I will say that the $10,000 that we applied to Preservation Massachusetts for would not be applicable to the windows project. I think they only fund historic preservation that is frontward facing, or that project of these windows, that were put in the 80s, I don't think would be in what they would fund, although they would help support this, this other work. If you add up everything I just read that's in green, that's just under $56,000. So we applied to them for 10 and to the CPC for the remainder.
Okay, and just one question from me on Donna, Sarah, Donna has arrived. And one more question from me, and that is, if you have to prioritize any of these pieces of work within that green area, what would be the priorities to get done, immediately? Because if we can't do the whole thing, then what would be the important stuff for you to do?
What would you say, Rebecca? I love them all, so it's
Yeah,
hard. It's a tough one.
I love them all. You know, I always want to put our best foot forward. So that would lobby for doing the bell tower and the facade work. But really, truly, the integrity of the building and its place in the community, the windows are really critically important. We've got our side view and our rear view is really, really compromised. And the functionality of the indoor space is also really compromised. So I think the window project is really critically important for the both the historic aspects of the building as well as the interior functionality.
Thank you.
I'll
Can I
add
ask a
that.
question.
Sort of, that's okay, we understand.
I'd like to add that the facade is much easier to fundraise for. It's just, if we had to go elsewhere, I would say that would be easier to fundraise for, although it's more of a priority. But that's the less sexy thing is the Windows project.
Thank you, that's helpful, thank you. Anybody else have a question before we close this down?
No
Go
questions,
ahead,
but if I had to take a guess and comment briefly, I think the bell would probably have gone in World War II because of the metal shortages.
Was that when they needed it? Yeah.
So you might find that anything that was, necessarily it's been replaced since then. So hopefully there's not a lot of birds and bats in there. But yeah, that would be my guess.
Yeah.
Just to throw that out there.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Rebecca, did you have something you wanted to add?
I'm curious how many folks have been in the 15 Bank Row building in the past.
Oh, cool.
Great. Well, we'd welcome you to come poke around with us. It's a fabulous building. We're very proud of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, if you get funded, we'll certainly be there.
Okay.
Are there any other questions before we close it down? Okay, seeing none. Thank you both very much for coming to the meeting. You're welcome to stay and listen to the other discussions, but you don't have to if you don't wish to. So thank you very, very much. And we will move on to the Franklin County Agricultural Society. And I said, there's Mike. And Mike Nelson. Mike, we've gone through this a bit before because we had funded you before, but you should let us know if you've got any short thing that you want to put forward that we should have at this time.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you all again. The Franklin County Agricultural Society, which owns the Franklin County Fairgrounds, is proposing the second phase of a project to restore and rehabilitate the cattle barns at the facility. The barns were built in 1910. As you walk into the fairgrounds, they're immediately to your right, directly across from the roundhouse. This committee generously helped us put new roofs on it 2 years ago. And we were successfully able to get that done, and are proud to claim to fame that we are the first CPC project ever done in Greenfield. So very excited with that title. So as we enter the next phase, we're looking to get some stain on the building to preserve the wood. Our initial plan, which we have done for literally 100 years, was to use whitewash on the building. There's a whitewash vendor out of Albany area that we've used for decades, and they are no longer doing it. So we kind of struggled a bit to find a whitewash vendor. I finally reached out to the Mass Department of Agricultural Resources at the state level and asked their they had any leads of who I could potentially find whitewashers for. And they actually shared the information that whitewashing is just not a common practice anymore for barns. It's not a recommended practice from MDAR. And they actually recommended that we move into removing the existing whitewash and replace it with a white, strong UV resistant, weather resistant stain. So the proposed project is to do just that. It would be removing the thick layers of decades of whitewash off the building that hasn't already crumbled off. And then applying a brand new stain top to bottom, inside and out, over all 3 cow barns in order to preserve the wood and keep it from the elements. So the total project cost is $50,000. For the purposes of the CPC, we have broken it down and are requesting the CPC support with the stuff side of it. So the supplies, the fairgrounds would foot the bill of the staff labor to do the work, which is $32,822. And then we would be requesting from CPC the cost of the paint, tarps, and the dumpster. The dumpster primarily would be all the flakes that would be coming off the building for disposal of those. The building, I think I mentioned this, but the project would be taking place in all the rafters. So it would be all the stalls of all 3 buildings, as well as up in the ceiling rafters, which you can see the photos in the application that I submitted. It would be going up and deep in all those, really in some really tight corners. MDAR was really pleased to recommend a couple different barn restoration vendors for this project. They've had equally good success with at other fairgrounds across the Commonwealth. And the vendor we've selected is one of the ones that they had initially recommended. So we're very excited that we know the vendor that would potentially be moving forward with this is somebody with extreme experience, high quality standards, and would really give us a high quality product at the end based on the work they've already done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Not a question so much as I was so curious about it. So I actually went and looked at Mike's barn painting website because I thought, wow, that's such a specialized thing. And the projects that he has worked on in the past are really amazing and very beautiful. So he has a lot of good responses, good reviews. So it was kind of fun. I've never been to a barn painting website before.
Yeah, it was a totally new world for me the past year or so, going on to all these sites.
Other questions, comments? Garth?
Tom Sawyer didn't submit a.
We did not get one from Tom
one.
Sawyer, but he would have been excellent, I'm sure.
I hear they work pretty cheap. You know, they don't always finish the job, but you know they'll do some whitewashing for you.
There you go.
Other questions, comments? I have a question. Are you going to any of the other, since this is also a regional entity, are you going to any other CPCs in the region, Deerfield, any of the other towns that are close by that for funding, or is it just Greenfield?
Great question. I'm not familiar with the CPCs in the other communities. In fact, that's actually kind of news to me that Deerfield has one. Are there other communities besides Deerfield that have CPC applications?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look, but there are a couple of them.
Okay.
Yes.
So short answer to answer your question is no, based on just my pure lack of knowledge of such a thing, but always happy to seek grant opportunities for sure.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Sarah?
Were you ever contacted by one of the Historic Commission members, Jeremy Ebersol, by chance?
Yes, I was. And we had the opportunity to meet with the whitewashing vendor that he had worked with on a previous job. They came out Oh, maybe about a month ago. It was on a very cold, snowy day that I was able to meet with his contact. I never actually received a written proposal. But when I told him that we had received the quote of $50,000 from Mike's for the wood stain, he said, "Oh, my project would be way more than that." So I don't actually know what it was going to be. I think maybe after I said that, he realized that we kind of were already going a different direction. But yes,
Oh,
we did meet with him, and it seemed like it was a much more costlier project.
That sounds it. Yeah. For context, Jeremy knew a whitewashing vendor that he might recommend, and I was curious if that had ever been followed up, just for everybody else's knowledge.
Yep. Yeah, unfortunately, it was a good looking road, but a very expensive looking road. So we kind of put the brakes out real quick.
Any other questions, comments about this?
And that was going to be a short-term solution too. Whitewash, just for everybody's background, when we've whitewashed in the past, we generally did it every about 5 years, and after a year or so, it starts to flake. So we haven't done it since 2015, so it's in really rough shape now. The stain, on the other hand, that we're looking to do is 20 years plus. So the return on investment is significantly more valuable than whitewashing, which is done so much more frequently.
Thank you. That's helpful to know. Thank you.
Of course.
Other questions, comments? Seeing none, we thank you.
Yep.
And, we will move on to our next victim. So
Great. Thank you all. Have a great night.
thank you. You too. Jack, you have to recuse yourself now.
I am no longer
you
part
are-
of the CPC for the evening.
Okay.
Maybe I
So-
can put my hat back on after.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for having me. I am here this evening on behalf of the Greenfield Housing Associates and our Winslow property, which is located at 9 Wells Street. For those of you who do not realize the connection with Greenfield Housing Authority, Greenfield Housing Authority has a management agreement with the Winslow property, and we are also an affiliate to the Greenfield Housing Associates, and I happen to be the executive director for both entities. So that's why I'm the person who's submitted the application on behalf of the Greenfield Housing Associates. There are two major areas that directly relate to the water tightness. The first is the roof, and the second is the very large amount of the brickwork that needs to be done in the form of repointing. And so that's what we would be utilizing the funding from the CPC to achieve the water tightness through the repointing. If there's any specific questions about the Winslow that you have separate from the application, I'm happy to go into the, why we've applied for permanent supportive housing funding for this project. Essentially, we've recognized over the last 5 years, pre-COVID and sort of post-COVID, the great need that the 55 residents who live there currently need with additional assistance as far as social work and being able to meet some of their daily needs. So a good portion of the project that is separate from the capital needs also goes into increasing the services for the occupants that are there. And I'm happy to talk about that more as well if there's any questions, but this funding specifically is going to be used for the repointing work.
Donna.
Yeah, so I was reviewing all of the applications today, Jack, and I noticed that I didn't see any support letters attached to yours. So, and I guess maybe this is a procedural question too, because I also noticed that one of the pickleball and the Valley Housing Cooperative did not have supporting letters either. Is that something that we would entertain, like encourage and entertain? You know, after, even though the deadline for the proposals has passed?
Let me ask folks in the group what they think. Garth?
I would say like yes to some degree, but I'm unimpressed with like the Valley Advocate or the Recorder's like, oh, favorite X, Y, and Z thing, right? It's not a popularity contest. It's like is this a actual useful project that fits within our parameters?
Yeah, sure,
Right?
but
I
it
mean,
also is part of the
people can like
scoring.
come and comment at the various meetings. People can,
Mhm.
we'll have the survey, we'll have all this other stuff. But just like, I don't know, I feel like, going through like, hey, can you sign my recommendation letter? If I write it and then you just doodle on it, doesn't feel like a real big win to me.
Becky?
I would just say, though, that is part of the criteria that we are judging these applications on. And so many other people have, in fact, gone out and gotten those letters of support. And I agree, Kurt, that you don't want it to turn into that, but it's a fairly large, could be a large part of our adding up scores here. And if somebody turns in an application with no letters of support versus the people who turn in 5 letters of support, you got to wonder a little bit. I did note, though, in the Winslow that, the mayor has agreed to drop the $2,000 fee. So there's something there, but it's not as well-defined or well-developed as some of the other community support pieces are with other applications.
I guess I did, maybe I missed them. I saw one other application with a community support letter. Right, it was the CRC thing had a community support thing. Was there others?
Yeah, well, I
have the
know
letters?
that as chair of the Recreation Commission, I wrote one for the Recreation Department's application and also for the pickleball expansion application at Christie's request. And I did see, I felt like I saw a couple from the mayor in there. But they're like all the way at the end of the application. You
Oh,
have
they're
to
at the
scroll
end
down.
of the pickleball.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
Now on the website,
fair enough.
the ones for the CRC had an appendix on the city website. That's where you would find the recommendation letters from the Historic Commission for their projects. I was already pretty familiar with those, which is why I didn't have any comment, because they had asked us already for those kinds of letters, just to garner the support,
Yeah, I will say, Donna, I do not have a good excuse for not having the support letters. I started back in August and was up against 2 really big deadlines for this particular project. And so I had to weigh getting our full application into the state versus hounding folks for the support letter. So I try not to make an excuse by responding to your question, Donna, that I know was for the committee. But as the applicant, I just wanted to share that I have since the application been in contact with several in the community who are willing to write letters, but I didn't feel that that was fair for me to come tonight and ask. And so I did invite those folks when there's public comment to come so that at least you guys would see that there is community support. I just didn't want to overstep on my role in trying to convince folks to let those letters in after the fact. And so I appreciate the question.
Wisty?
I appreciate the discussion. I would like to let those letters in after the fact, like now, just to bring it up to people. For the reasons that were stated already. I do think that they're important. That's all. I'd like to let them in now for anybody who comes in and does not have them.
Do we need to have a vote on this? What do folks think? It's kind of a policy question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But aren't we having a public hearing on everything?
we are.
So people could submit stuff as part of that, whether it's part of the application.
Mm-hmm.
You could be like, I can't be at the public hearing, but here's a letter saying this is a great project.
Right. Christian?
Yeah, I mean, people, it's up to you if you want to welcome people to continue to submit support letters in regards to those being considered part of the application and kind of the practicality of like what an application is. The application is what's on the city website, and unfortunately, I don't have the staff time to be continuously uploading new PDFs every time a new letter comes in, and so we had a deadline. So from my perspective, it feels like considering it part of the application, that deadline's passed. Whether it's public comment at that point, then that sounds much more better way to go about it.
Okay, so why don't we say then that anyone who we question around the issue of a support letter or the need for more public comment, that either letters or public comment will come in during the public hearing. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay, good enough.
Okay,
Thank
yeah,
you.
and no
Thank you.
judgment. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware, Jack, as someone that's new to the committee and new to the process. I didn't want to see you lose points because of, you know, a letter or whatever. So that's all.
Becky, you look like you wanted to say
I
something.
did, I had a question, and this might seem silly, but is the building leaking now?
So there are a few areas that we continue to patch. There are skylights that are part of the units that do not have windows. And so those probably twice a year are being caulked. And then the front of the storefronts on Main Street also have flashings that we continue to caulk that water is coming in on.
So yes.
Yeah, it's an urgent project for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, my other phone is ringing and I have to wait a second. Okay, it stopped. I just wanted to ask you, are there other questions or comments around this or questions about the Winslow in general? Becky?
One more. And this is sort of the same question we're asking anybody who's filling out this application, and it says under the EOHLC that that's not been confirmed money, the construction funds. And your sense of when you might learn about that, or how does that, that's not a correlation to this particular part of the project. That's something different, correct?
So it's the overall funding, and we are supposed to hear sometime around February 15th. So as the folks before me, when they were talking about being invited in, when pre-applications are submitted to the state, it's a quite rigorous process to determine whether or not they feel, based on what you've submitted in your pre-application, you're qualified and far along enough to submit the full application. So we went through that process, and that was what the December 5th deadline was. So we're fairly confident. It all unfortunately ends up being what funding the state still has available. We are looking for specific money from the home portion of the dollars that the state has to give, and that's a much harder pool to fill into. And based on our population being from the chronically homeless, disabled population, we qualify for those particular funds. So we're feeling pretty confident that we have a good chance at making this come to fruition.
Other questions or comments for Jack? Okay. Seeing none, Jack, you can return to your role as a member of the committee, and we can move on to old business. Christian.
Yep, I'll just go down the list of the projects from FY 2023 and 24, just sharing any updates that I have. Let's see, pull it up. So FY 2023 projects, barn rehabilitation was already completed. Historical Society and the Museum of Our Industrial Heritage, as you know, received extensions granted by all of you at your last meeting to June 30th, 2025. I have both of those in hand already, signed by the recipient. So those are getting processed. CSO, as you know, had a slightly longer out construction completion date than what was in the original application. So that also received the extension to May 2026 at your last meeting. The Boaz/Recreation Apartment Trail restoration and the pickleball court expansion, once again, also received those extensions. And I got those signed by Christy today, I believe. The track project, the Beacon Park project, the Shattuck Fitness Cluster project, and the site amenities projects. At this point, I've received final reports from all of those. So those actually are all considered officially complete and closed out, which is fantastic. And in regards to fiscal year 2024 projects, the Garden Block / Garden Cinema project has actually already requested their second reimbursement, and pending a few more materials to come in that they're waiting on. That project is going to wrap up fairly soon. I had a chance to speak with Isaac. So we're saving the last 10% of the grant for when that gets completed, but then that'll be wrapped up. The downtown housing project with Tim Grader and Franklin and Maine LLC. That one in the middle of December received their first reimbursement. So that one's moving along. No updates from Oxbow Design Build Co-op. I'll check in with them. Hopefully can have one for the next meeting. Habitat for Humanity is continuing their work on the house up on Petty Plain Road. And then also Christy could probably provide a more comprehensive update at the next meeting you'll have with her on updates on her fiscal year 2024 projects, since she'll be presenting new ones for 25 at the next meeting. So
Thanks, Christian. Are there any questions for Christian on any of those? I know we went through quickly, but we're in the process of trying to get all that stuff done and try to clean up some of the long-standing stuff and have it be finalized. Christian, do we have banners and such for all of these? Are they going to be going up?
Yep, yeah, I have banners distributed to some of them, and then the rest I have plenty of banners in my office. So yes.
Because one of the things we're trying to do is tell people where their money went. And so having the banners going up saying that these were CPC funded gives us some credibility in terms of, yes, this money is going out and it's going out, and these are the places it's going to. Okay.
Yeah, Isaac actually has the banner for the Garden Cinema project right above the front door of the Garden Cinema, so very visible.
Cool. Any questions for Christian? Go ahead, Donna.
Not so much a question for Christian. Quickly, I want to apologize. I thought this meeting was at 5:30, despite the fact that it said 5 right on the agenda, because it was in my calendar at 5:30, and so that's what I went with. I do want to let you know that I completed the feedback survey Google form. I'm not sure if that got mentioned earlier while I was not here. But I shared that with you, Christian, and you have editing rights to it. So that's something that people should review and check my work on, make sure that things line up and match and stuff. That's it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
And
Yeah, I
thanks for
received
doing
that, Donna. Yep, I received that, Donna, and I looked that over this afternoon, made a few tweaks, but it's good to go. So same as last year and the year before.
So Christian, if we can get that out to everybody in between these two meetings, and then we can mess around with it and just see if it works. What we're mostly concerned about. Go ahead, Becky.
This is just because I'm new too. Is there a point at which we as a commission discuss the scores we've given the applications?
Yes,
Oh, that's like after we've had all of these meetings with them.
right, right. I mean, you can, there's no reason if you've got, if you want to put in scores and, and use them for your own purposes right now, you certainly do that. But eventually we will finalize that in a little bit, and we'll send them to Christian so that we'll have those for everybody. Donna? you wanna say-
We don't actually have the scoring sheets. I don't know where I looked for them in the shared Google Drive, so I don't know where they
They're
are.
on the website. They're on the city,
Oh, okay, the updated ones.
yeah,
Okay.
they're on the
I
website.
always think of them as being more of like an internal thing, but they are public facing. Okay, never mind.
I can send those out too to everyone just as a
Yeah,
backup.
it may be worth sending them around and, like a lot of things, it's probably worth at least having all the initial meetings before running through all the scores, right? Because
Right.
everything's relative.
Right.
So, you find yourself, you go through one like, oh yeah, this, and this, and then you go back and be like, oh, actually, I think that's a much better project or much worse project than this fifth one or whatever that came through. And I want
that
to
does-
like figure out how to adjust my score. So,
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do a trial run. That's absolutely fine, and there's no
oh
reason.
yeah,
to-
definitely.
Yep. And I'll actually like the last couple of years, or maybe just last year, I'll make a Excel version of the scoring sheet, so you can have them just one page where you can put all your scores in really fast if you are so inclined.
Great.
And then
Thank you.
I had to ask Christian today to print out the applications for me because my printer wasn't doing it, and are we gonna be able to get that for the others too? I hate to use the paper, but I can't
Yeah,
do the screen and I really need to focus on it on paper. I know that's old fashioned. But
Yeah, usually when we have an in-person meeting, I'll have a few printed copies just for both members and the public if they need them either.
and as Jack showed, he has his printed out. I have mine printed out.
I printed mine too, Becky.
okay.
Yeah,
I
it
got
helps.
12 PDF tabs. Living the dream. Living the dream.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, anything more that we need to discuss in terms of the work that we're doing tonight? If not, I will just remind folks that our next meeting is on January 23rd at 5:30. And we will be discussing the 2 pickleball applications and the Greenfield Recreation Department application for the educational pieces. Okay, then I've never seen this before. We're actually just a little over an hour, but if anyone would like to make a motion to adjourn, I will certainly entertain it.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? I don't think we need to do a thing for this. Okay, all right, good enough. Thank you all very, very much. And have a lovely rest of the evening.